This is the Lifan 200, also known as Richardo R3. This is for a dropped handlebar modification. This is a really simple modification. It only takes a few minutes and a few tools. The first step, you need to come to your handlebars. And as you can see, I have already done this modification. So everything I'm going to point to you, I'm just going to point. I'm not actually going to do anything here. The first step you need to do is you're going to loosen your handlebars with this hex key here and have your handlebars just hang off the side of the bike. You're going to do that for both sides. The next step is to take off the tree. You're going to loosen this big bolt here with I used a monkey wrench. There are 2 bolts on the side that you also need to loosen. You're going to remove the tree completely off the bike so that the only thing left is a bolt right here and then the fork tubes. After that, the next step is to go to the front of the bike, and you need to shrink the gap in between the front fairing and the tire. This is really simple. You just grab a wrench and you're going to go up and inside the fairing. And there are 2 bolts here. There's one right here and another over here. You're going to loosen up both of those. Once those are both loose, you can lower the bike down the front forks. As you can see, there are some markings up here where the bike was, and I lowered it a few inches down. And that lowered the front end of the bike and made the gap smaller. The next step is you're going to come back over to the front of the bike, and you're going to put your tree back on. The tree will be in a lower position than it originally was. So that's not a problem because you need the extra space on the tubes. Next, you're going to grab a wrench and a Phillips screwdriver, and you're going to loosen the bolts on the clutch. You just need to loosen them, you don't need to take them off. And you need to take your Phillips head screwdriver and you're going to loosen up the bolts on the bottom of the control box. You don't need to take anything off, you're just loosening up the controls. And you're going to do the exact same on the throttle and brake. And when you do this, the controls should, the whole handlebar should be still hanging off the side of the bike. And if you look closely, the only thing I did was I flipped the handlebar upside down. And there's nothing more to it. You just literally flip it upside down. In the process of flipping, you need to rotate the control box and the brake, or the control box and the clutch, depending on which handlebar you're working on. You're going to rotate it forward. Now, I put a larger gap for the handlebars than there originally was because I had a little bit of an issue clearing the fairing. Now, if you felt comfortable enough lowering the gap, the one up here in the front, if you feel comfortable lowering that further, you're more than welcome to, and you'll have a little bit more clearance. And the only problem with this is if you stop or you're on rough road, your fairing might hit the wheel well. So now that your handlebars are upside down, you're going to secure them back up. And for the most part, that's it. You need to play around a little bit with the height of the front fairing. If it's not low enough, you're not going to be able to do this modification. So if you need to, keep lowering the front just a little bit by little bit and see what works. The other problem is with the brake side. This is where a couple of the issues came along. The main problem was with the brake, and I'm actually going to turn the wheel here so you can see a little bit better. Behind the brake, it's usually covered by a rubber boot. There is the hydraulic line going into the back. If you loosen this bolt up just a little bit, you don't want to loosen up too much, otherwise you might have hydraulic fluid coming out. But you loosen up just a little bit, and what happens is you can get the hydraulic line right here from going straight down to at an angle. And that'll give you a little bit more room to turn, because if you don't, it knocks up against the controls, or the gauges. And then you just put the boot back on. The other problem is that the hydraulic line plays a problem with the fairing. On the left side, you have the top of the fairing. But on the right side, you can't have a fairing. Or you need to cut out a small portion of your fairing so that the hydraulic line has room to move. When you do this modification, the handlebars have a smaller turning radius. The bike cannot turn as steep. However, this doesn't inhibit any riding capabilities. It's still able to take corners. It's still able to ride and ride safe. So it's just as simple as that. You lower the bike, you flip the handlebars upside down, and you do minor adjustments to make sure you have maximum turning and control. So go out there and enjoy.